When you see people speaking to each other fluently in English, do you think to yourself, I wish I could speak like that? I wish I could speak English effortlessly? Well, I understand how you feel because this is exactly how I still feel when I see native speakers speaking French and Spanish, two languages that I wish I could speak more fluently. So let's talk about reaching this mysterious level of fluency in English, going from point A to point B. It's actually very simple. Notice that I said simple, not easy. The weather is getting really nice here where I live, and so today I want you to imagine yourself as a mountain climber. It takes about 64 days, or about 2 months, to climb Mount Everest, the world's highest mountain. Because climbing Mount Everest is easy. We all know the real challenge lies in climbing the mountain of language fluency. This mountain has 10 steps. At each step along the way, you can choose to stop, to quit, go back down the mountain, hang out at base camp and fly home, or you can simply choose to take a rest, eat a snack, and continue your way up Fluency Mountain. If you know the route, if you've packed your bag correctly, and if you have a wise guide, you will make it to the top of the mountain, even if it takes some time. Today, I'm going to offer you some practical advice, technical tips, and exercises. But more importantly, I would like to show you the big picture and the transformation that needs to happen in your heart and soul in order to reach the summit of Fluency Mountain. If you choose to watch this entire video today, take notes, wear your safety helmet, and then put those notes into action, you will become a fluent English speaker. I know it. Please note that you don't have to do the 10 steps in this order. There is a lot of disagreement about the order that learning a language should happen in, what you should know first, what you should concentrate on second, etc. Study English in any way you want, in any way that works for your lifestyle. The important thing is that you don't give up. What is fluency? There is a lot of debate about what it means to be fluent. Let's keep things simple and describe fluency like this for today. The rapid, smooth, accurate, lucid, and efficient translation of thought or communicative intention into language. So being able to take the thoughts in our head and communicate them to another person in English in a smooth, accurate, and efficient way. That's the goal. That's the flag at the top of the mountain. And when you reach the top, you can speak English fluently about almost anything. I say almost because nobody can speak fluently in English about everything. I'm a native speaker, but I cannot have a fluent English conversation about quantum mechanics or the stock market, for example. I do not speak those dialects of English. Let's begin at the beginning. You wake up in the morning at base camp in your tent. You're thinking to yourself about your first obstacle, which is this. Do I have enough vocabulary words in English to speak fluently about almost anything? The good news here is that spoken English does not need as big of a vocabulary as listening in English. Language scholar Paul Nation says that the 2,000 most frequent words of English cover about 90% of everyday spoken English. That means that if you know these 2,000 word families, the 2,000 most frequently used words, you can say about 90% of what you want to say in everyday spoken conversation. That's amazing. That means that you do not have to spend all of your time learning new words in order to be a fluent English speaker. You just need to get really good at using these 2,000 words. By the way, I will include all of the PDF materials that I will be speaking about today in my English with Brittany email newsletter. I will email them to you right now. It's all completely free and you can unsubscribe at any time. I will put a link down here in the description. There are many techniques to memorize vocabulary words in English, which honestly deserves its own video because it's a huge topic. But briefly, I can tell you not to try and memorize lists of vocabulary words. According to research, trying to memorize a list of words is not the most effective way. Also, it's pretty boring. Instead, try one of these research-based methods for memorizing vocabulary words. Read a lot. Articles, books, anything that you find interesting and that isn't too easy or too hard. If you have to constantly look up words in the dictionary, it's probably too difficult. Graded readers are a good option for many people. There's a website that has free online graded readers. I'll put the website here on the screen. To study French, I like to read French children's books to my son. I also like to read easy chapter books that are meant for elementary school students. If you're lucky, you can find bilingual books where English is written on one side and your first language is written on the other side of the book. These are really cool as well. Make flashcards of the 2,000 most frequently used words. Write the word on one side, and then on the back, don't write a translation in your language. Instead, write 1 or 2 English sentences that include the vocabulary word. You can write the sentences using Google Translate or AI to help you. Every day, take 10 minutes to review the cards, trying to remember the sentence on the other side. When you get the cards correct, put them in an envelope with a green sticker. When you can't remember the sentence, put the card in an envelope with a red sticker. Each day, test yourself on the red envelope flashcards first. Test yourself on the green envelope cards less often. This is a simple variation of the flashcard method called the Lightner system. If you don't know them already, in just a matter of weeks or a few months at most, you'll know the 2,000 most frequently used words in English. Here are 2 more free resources that I think you'll really enjoy for studying vocabulary. This website, youglish.com, you can type in a word or a phrase and see how it's used in a sentence naturally, and also how it's pronounced.
That was not a breath-holding exercise.
Just to keep our exercise.
Every hour would stand on her head for exercise.
And this is another cool website. This one lets you visualize vocabulary words and see their connections and associations to other similar words. Maybe you are trying to reach native-like fluency in English, or maybe you're not. There's no right or wrong thing to do here. These are your goals and your choices. But it is important to know that reaching total native-like pronunciation in another language as an adult is extremely difficult, and really only necessary if you want to be an actor or maybe a spy.
I'm a spy, that's what I do.
And that it's more effective for our learning and for our mental sanity to set realistic goals for ourselves. I actually find this idea to be extremely liberating as a language student myself. When we accept that it's okay, more than okay, that it's perfectly normal, in fact, to be imperfect in another language, that we are all going to sound silly or even foolish sometimes, when we really accept this and decide, I'm just going to be very silly and foolish today, and I'm gonna speak anyway. I just find this to be a very comforting sentiment. And it helps me to fight against the little perfectionist monster inside of me. If you're like me at all, you will have to fight this perfectionist monster many times on the mountain as you climb your way to fluency. To really fight your inner perfectionist, I recommend forcing yourself to create something in English every single day, even if you think it's terrible. So forcing yourself to write a few sentences in your journal, or to record your voice for a minute talking about your day, or if you're really brave, posting something online in English every day, even if it's not perfect. At this point on the mountain, you decide it's time to dance. It's time to sing. You're adjusting your ears to the music of English and you're trying to mimic it. Every language on earth has a certain rhythm, flow, and music to it. If we want to learn how to play the piano, we are never going to learn by just studying the sheet music. We have to first really listen to the music and absorb it, and then we have to try to play it ourselves. Have you ever noticed that little babies and children love music? They all do. They listen and they move, they clap their hands, they repeat words and phrases even though they might not yet understand the meaning. Often when we're learning English, we forget this important step. We think that spending most of our time reading and studying words on paper will be enough to achieve fluency. when really we need to be spending much more time adjusting our ears and adjusting our mouths to bring the words to life. I don't want to get too technical here. We can do that in another video about pronunciation if you'd like, but I want to show you something. Most languages of the world, including French, Cantonese, Polish, and Spanish, are what's called syllable-timed languages. The rhythm of these languages looks like this. English, on the other hand, is what's called a stress-timed language and looks a little bit more like this. Basically, what this means for our listening and speaking in English is that many vowel sounds get reduced to something that sounds like this, and many function words in English are reduced, softened, or weakened so that they're very difficult to hear. This is part of the music of English, and if you've never been introduced to these concepts, it can be very easy to miss it. There are many exercises that you can do to start to adjust your ears and your mouth to the music of English. Here's how to do shadowing practice in the comfort of your own home. Watch a video in English that you're interested in. It's best if it has lots of dialogue, lots of speaking. You can try this with or without subtitles. I prefer to do it with subtitles personally. Listen to what the speaker says and repeat after them, mimicking their accent, rhythm, and intonation as closely as you possibly can. Just so you know, this is what my 2-year-old son does all day long, all day, every day as he's learning English. He mimics me, he mimics stuff he sees on TV, he mimics songs that he hears, just like a little parrot. If you listen closely to what you are mimicking, you're going to notice that the words in the subtitles and what you are saying are very often quite different. That is because spoken English is a very different system from written English. If you haven't noticed already, you will start to notice that English speakers use tons of contractions when they speak and something called connected speech, simply meaning that we link and blend the sounds of many, many words together. I'll link a video here where I talk a little bit more about connected speech and reduced function words, but I plan on making more videos about this topic in the future. If you're walking along, singing on the mountain, and everybody keeps asking you to repeat yourself, there might be a problem with the specific notes that you're hitting or not hitting. Having an accent in English is lovely and perfectly fine, but bad pronunciation means that communication is breaking down and that other people are not understanding your messages. This can cause you to lose confidence and stumble down the mountain. There are difficult sounds in English that can take a long time to master. Here's an interesting chart from a speech therapy website for children. You'll notice there are many sounds in English that native speakers cannot say until they are 3 years old, 4 years old, 5, even 6 years old. My son is 2 years old, and there are some sounds in English that he just can't say yet, even though he practices all day, every day, really. All day. What does that mean for us adult learners? If you've already identified the sounds that are hard for you to say in English, don't keep practicing the same sounds over and over and over again that you're already good at. There are many, many pronunciation and phonetics videos available for free on YouTube. There are videos that show you how to move your mouth and your tongue to master a specific sound. Search for a video of the sound that you're having trouble with, and then do it again and again and again until you create something called muscle memory in your mouth. It will start to feel easy and effortless for you. If you don't know which sounds are hard for you in English, you could simply search for what sounds in English are difficult for a Portuguese speaker or for a Korean speaker, for example. You could use that website that I talked about earlier, Youglish, to find a video clip of a sound that's difficult for you being used in context, in a phrase or in a sentence. And then you could practice the shadowing technique using that clip. Often students are able to make the tricky sound in isolation all by itself, but then they struggle to say the sound correctly when speaking in full sentences spontaneously in conversation. So it's a good idea to practice difficult sounds both in isolation and in full sentences in context. Step number 5, is grammar important? When you reach an icy part of the mountain and realize you don't have any crampons with you, those spiky shoes that help you cross icy patches, you are going to have a very slippery situation. Your crampons are grammar. They ground and stabilize you in your speaking. So yeah, I do think grammar is important, but probably not in the way that you think. I wish that I could go back in time to my classroom and change the way that I used to teach grammar to my students. I think that I used to put too much importance on my grammar lessons, to be honest. It is important to know grammar. It's important to have those crampons. It's useful, but I don't think that you need to stress about knowing every single little rule about grammar in order to be a fluent English speaker. In fact, there are many, many fluent English speakers who know nothing about grammar. Educated people. People who are very good speakers but just don't know anything about grammar. Grammar allows us to be more precise, it gives us a lot of confidence, but if I know every rule of French grammar and I still can't speak because I'm obsessing about the grammar, then my grammar skills are not that impressive and not that useful. Who cares if I know the grammar rules if I cannot apply them quickly and fluidly when I need them? I probably would have benefited my students more if I had given them fewer grammar exercises and instead offered them some more interesting and authentic ways to study grammar. Here's how to study grammar at home more naturally in context. If you're watching Netflix or YouTube in English with English subtitles, and if you see a verb or a phrase or a preposition or a group of words that make you go, I don't really understand this, or I don't really understand why this is being used here, type that phrase into ChatGPT or into whatever AI you prefer and ask it, please break down the grammar of this sentence for me. And voila, watch ChatGPT become your English grammar teacher. If it still doesn't make sense to you, if you don't understand the explanation, and you don't have a teacher or a tutor or someone else you can ask, there are plenty of free online forums where you can post your question, including in the comments of this YouTube video. If I can help you, I will try. And there are many other smart people who watch my videos who I'm sure would be happy to help you as well if they see your comment. You could also take that phrase and ask ChatGPT for more examples of similar phrases in other TV series and movies in English. Or you could try to find more examples in Youglish. If you're a music lover, you could ask ChatGPT for examples of that grammar concept or phrase in popular songs, and then go listen to those songs for more examples of the tricky grammar in context. Grammar is more fun when you're singing it. It will make the grammar come to life, more so than just living on a piece of paper. This step on the mountain is for when you fall into a ditch and hurt your leg. You might need a pair of crutches for a while. These are some things that you can memorize, have in your back pocket, and use when you need them in conversation. I've created a PDF with 100 of the most common, useful phrases and questions that you can use in everyday English conversation. That's part of my email newsletter, which you can get from the link down below. You can then use this document to study. You can make flashcards from it if you'd like, or simply choose a few phrases that you think will be most useful for you and just memorize those few phrases. Now listen, I don't think you should just memorize phrases and expect to become fluent in English. Of course, speaking a language and having conversations is much more spontaneous than that. But what this does do is it gives you a tool to use when you're feeling stuck. It's a phrase or a question that you have memorized and that you know is correct and that you can feel confident using if you need to. Another thing that you can do is to memorize quick personal stories about yourself. Something easy that you feel comfortable talking about that maybe you've practiced while laying in bed at night. Having a small personal anecdote to tell can make you feel more confident and in control of a conversation. Okay, so this one is going to sound a little bit weird probably. Many students and many teachers fall into this trap. It's a huge mistake because it makes you lose focus and keeps you from becoming a fluent English speaker. This is a house that you're building. The house represents whatever your greatest reasons are for learning English. To connect with other people, to get a job, to move to another country, to connect with a loved one, to read a book, to watch a series, whatever it is for you. To build the house, you need tools. The problem that many students and even teachers have is that they become hyper-focused, even obsessed with the tools. And yes, the tools are essential, but the tools are a means to an end. The tools are not the goal. The house is the goal. People who forget about why they're building the house in the first place will end up with a shack. A shack surrounded by a lot of shiny tools that they don't really know how to use. I hope that made sense. Learning English is not a good goal. Why do you want to learn English? What will learning English help you to accomplish in your life? Okay, I want to expand on what we just talked about. It's really boring when someone tells you,
"You should set goals to learn English."
So I'm going to ask you to think about setting goals in a different way and give you an easy way to set them. Are you ready? First, I want you to be very brutally honest with yourself and answer these 5 questions right now. Where do you want to be with your English in 1 year from now? Do you have a clear level that you want to reach? Do you have a clear visualization of yourself as a fluent English speaker? How will speaking English fluently change your life? What are you doing every week or every day to get yourself to this end vision? I know it's a lot, but if you can't answer these questions, you're in trouble. It means that you don't have a clear goal. And if you're aiming at nothing, you're going to hit nothing. But don't worry, we can fix this right now if you want to. But we're going to do it in a special way using the science of goal setting. In a 2010 study from Psychological Science about self-talk and goal-setting behavior, 2 groups of people were asked to solve word puzzles. The minute before they solved the puzzles, the researchers instructed the first group to ask themselves how they would solve the puzzles. And the researchers asked the second group to tell themselves that they would solve the puzzles. So one group is asking themselves, how will I solve these puzzles? And the other group is hyping themselves up, telling themselves, I will solve these puzzles. Which group do you think solved the most puzzles? On average, the questioning group, the group asking themselves how they would solve the puzzles, solved 50% more than the self-affirmation group, the hyped up group. By asking yourself how you're going to solve the problem, you start to come up with strategies for accomplishing your goal. Many of us think that self-affirmations enhance our ability to meet our goals. But it seems like, according to this study, asking questions might be a better way to achieve our goals. As you make your goals for learning English, you might want to form them as a question. For example, will I become a fluent English speaker in 1 year? How will I become a fluent English speaker in 1 year? How will I reach C1 or C2 levels? Or whatever level it is that you're trying to reach. Take some time alone and write down your goals and be very honest and realistic with yourself. So you have a clear vision of where you want to be in 1 year from today, and then work backwards. What do you need to do every month, every day to get there, to be where you want to be in 1 year? Before you reach the very top of Fluency Mountain, I want you to consider something. There have been times when I was a student in French class or Spanish class, and the teacher asked me a question that I was unable to answer, which was really embarrassing. I felt stuck and blocked. And when I thought about those times later, I realized something. It wasn't really a language problem that I was having. I think that sometimes when I wasn't able to answer a question, it was because I wasn't even really able to articulate those answers in my first language, in English. Even in English, I wasn't clear on my own opinions or emotions or feelings or memories on those certain topics. So of course I had difficulty explaining myself in another language. I think it's important for students to realize that even in their first language, you probably will struggle sometimes to express yourself and to be understood. If you really think about it, the conversations in your first language are not always super smooth. There's probably a lot of hesitation. There are probably times when you feel like you don't have the exact words to match your thoughts and emotions inside of you. Sometimes we get frustrated when we can't speak English perfectly fluently without realizing that our thoughts and emotions in our first language also aren't perfectly fluent. You can work on this and make this a bit better by keeping a journal. Even if it's in your first language, it doesn't have to be in English. Just the act of writing your thoughts and your opinions every day or your memories can do some work to unblock yourself a little bit. Learning to speak another language can be a lot like therapy, and we can learn a lot about ourselves actually. Work on building true confidence. Confidence in speaking another language is honestly something that I'm struggling with a lot myself right now. There are many band-aid techniques that you can use to seem more confident, to boost your confidence in the moment if you need them. There's nothing wrong with these techniques, but it's really important that you also start to develop some deep, true confidence. And that's going to come with time. You have to be at peace with yourself. This doesn't happen overnight. You have to accept that you're going to be nervous and imperfect, and that it's okay to look and be foolish. All of us humans are foolish, and when we stop pretending to be perfect, life is a lot more fun. And learning English becomes a lot more fun when we stop trying to be perfect. You do not have to be perfect to reach the top of the mountain. No matter where you are on the mountain of fluency right now, there is something that you can do at home, alone, in the comfort of your own bed or on your couch to dramatically improve your English speaking. And all you need is a phone and this YouTube video. I explain how to do the exercise and I demonstrate it for you in broken French, so make sure you don't miss that video. Happy English learning, mountain climber. I will see you at the top.